Hi everyone, welcome back to the Let's Dip In podcast. My name is Vanessa and I'm a dietetic intern here at CSS. So let's dip into some review. Today we will be talking about equipment and facility planning. I will be talking about planning considerations, the planning procedure, employee safety in the kitchen, the flowchart, and the various components that go into a kitchen layout and employee safety in the kitchen. Let's begin with planning considerations. When you are planning, you want to take into consideration the menu, so what you will be cooking and serving and how, production and service systems, safety and sanitation, your budget, available energy systems, and maybe how sustainable you can make your facility, the location, and internal and external security. The planning procedure is when you are coming up with a formal summary of proposed work. This can begin with charrettes, which are collaborative planning sessions, or a bubble diagram, which is a drawing that defines spaces in the planned kitchen and the relationship of these spaces to each other with the use of circles or bubbles. You want to keep the menu in mind in order to carefully design the kitchen based on the equipment you need and where you need it. After gathering the info, you and the architect will create a program, and this program will state the goals of the project. In this program, you want to make sure to consider access, acoustics, ceilings, doors, environmental conditions, fire protection, floors, height, insulation, lighting, mechanical needs, power, security, walls, and in some cases, elevators, landscaping, and parking. The next step is a schematic design. A schematic design is the preliminary plans for a construction project. So this is where you would have the project costs, materials needed, and electric and/or mechanical issues that could arise. Finally, you would want to make a blueprint, and a blueprint is the design layout. So the food service manager, architect, design consultant, equipment representatives, builders, the administrator, and mechanical engineers all work together to plan the blueprint, keep each other in check during the project, and bring the blueprint to life. Also, don't forget, the administrator gives the final approval. The design and layout of the kitchen is a big part of the planning process. These are extremely important in order to have a kitchen run safely and efficiently. Design focuses on the overall space planning and includes defining the size, shape, style, and decoration of the space, whereas the layout is the detailed arrangement of equipment, floor space, and counter space. So the design takes into account the lighting, the ventilation, the floors, and other materials that we'll get into. So let's begin with the lighting. A foot candle is the measurement of illumination equal to 1 lumen of light on 1 square foot of space. Lumen is the amount of light generated when 1 foot candle of light shines from a source. The minimum light intensity for localized detailed work areas and reading recipes is 70 to 100 foot candles. For the food prep area, it is 50 foot candles. These two areas are greater since we need more light to see what we are doing. The hand washing, dishwashing area, restrooms, and salad bar is 20 foot candles. And 10 foot candles is used for storage units such as the freezer, fridge, and dry storage. Some different light bulbs may also be used. One example is the incandescent lights. These are light bulbs in which tungsten filament is encased in a sealed glass bulb that creates light when electricity passes through the filament. A second example is the electric discharge lights. These generate light by passing an electric arc through a tube filled with a special mixture of gases. And the third example, which is probably the most common, is the LED. It's an energy-efficient form of lighting that uses the movement of electrons across a semiconductor material to generate light. Next is ventilation. Ventilation is the circulation of fresh air in a space. This is also known as the heating and air conditioning. This is important in order to remove heat, odor, grease, moisture, and steam in the kitchen area. To keep the kitchen clean, filters on ventilation hoods must be cleaned regularly. The air requirements differ in different areas of food service establishments as well. In the kitchens, it is 35 CFM per person. In dining rooms, it is 15 to 20 CFM per person. And in general offices, it is 15 to 25 CFM per person. Moving on to the floors. Floors of the establishment must be smooth, durable, non-absorbent, and easy to clean. Just like the lighting and air, the floors differ from room to room. A concrete floor is used in receiving areas, in storage areas, where there is light traffic. It is also good for absorbing grease. The terrazzo is cement and crushed marble. This can be used in the dining room. Asphalt can also be used in the dining room where there is light traffic. The unglazed red clay tiles or non-porous quarry tiles, non-porous meaning non-absorbent, is great for the kitchen where there's heavy traffic. Aside from the floor, the walls should be glazed tiles of 5 feet and 8 inches high, a light color, washable, and water resistant. The ceiling should be 14 to 18 inches high, acoustically treated, and should be a lighter color than the walls. Like I said earlier, the layout is the detailed arrangement of equipment, floor space, and counter space. The criteria for selecting equipment for food service operation includes functionality, durability, ease of cleaning, capacity, size, energy use, and availability of parts and services. The menu has a big part in determining the equipment and space used. One way is by the market form of food purchases. Did the food come raw, prepared, or partially prepared? This will determine where it is stored after being received and what equipment is required to make the food when it needs to be prepared. The equipment used is also based on the batches and frequency size of food output. There are also layout rules that you need to abide by when creating the layout of your facility. For example, in the cafeteria, the tables should be about 4 to 5 feet apart, and there should be 18 inches between the chairs. The serving width should be 14 feet, the patron lane is 4 feet, the tray slide should be 1 foot, the counter width should be about 2 feet, there should be 4.5 feet for the workers, and then 2.5 feet for the bar back. In the employee dining area, there needs to be 12 square feet per person. Now, in the kitchen, the aisle should be 36 to 42 inches if it is a one-person lane. It should be 48 to 52 inches if it is made for more than one person, or where mobile equipment passes through. And a main traffic lane should be 60 inches, since there's a lot of movement. The floor area should be 20 to 30 square feet per bed. An optimum counter height is 36 inches for heavy work and 37 to 41 inches for light work. There should be a minimum of 6 inches between the floor and bottom of heavy-duty equipment for cleaning and sanitation purposes. And there needs to be a 12 to 24 inch clearance of heavy equipment from the wall. Now let's quickly talk about the most common layout shapes of a kitchen. The straight line, which is the best from a time and motion point. There's the L shape, which creates a limited amount of space but is convenient for work surface space. The U shape, which has a large amount of table surface area, but walking in and out can take more time. Then there's the parallel and back-to-back parallel shape, which is very efficient. Now, once you have your facility up and running, after all the planning, the food will start to flow. So the flow chart is the path that the food travels within the food service operation. A typical and efficient food service flow chart design will have little cross-traffic and no backtracking. It is the movement of food from receiving, to production, to customers, to warewashing, and then finally trash removal. So let's walk through these steps together. First, we will be receiving the food, and depending on if it's perishable, a dry good, ready to eat, or ready to cook, the food will have different paths. Let's start with food that may come to the facility perishable. First, it would be stored in the refrigerator and/or freezer, and then eventually move to the prep area in the kitchen, and then move to the serving unit. A food that may be received ready to eat may go straight to the main cooking area and then to the serving unit. A food that is a dry good will be stored in the dry storage area, then move to be prepped, and then move to the serving unit. All of these foods move from the serving unit to the dining room, then back to the kitchen to remove any excess food and be cleaned. Moving on to our last topic, we will be discussing employee safety in the kitchen. As important as it is to plan your kitchen and flow of food, it is just as important to think about the employees. And I want to define an important term here, ergonomics. Ergonomics is the study of how workers interact with their work environment. It is ergonomics that influences the lighting and footwear in a facility. An example of this is having heavy items stored on the middle rack or shelf to reduce the risk of any back or muscle strains. This is because strains are the most common work injury at a food establishment. Other safety concerns are PPE, which we have probably heard numerous times throughout the pandemic. But PPE is personal protective equipment, which can be seen as a chef wearing cut-resistant glove when chopping up ingredients. Another safety concern is workplace violence, which unfortunately is more common than not. In compliance with OSHA, it is suggested to train employees on how to recognize workplace violence, have a zero tolerance for it at the facility, and have security measures such as a camera and a safe for cash. This concludes this week's podcast on Let's Dip In. I hope this was a good refresher. Good luck!